Translation. O Muni, in the last millennium, I was born as the son of a certain maidservant engaged in the service of the Brahmanas who were following the principles of Vedanta. When they were living together during the 4 months of the rainy season, I was engaged in their personal service. Hare Krishna.
Jai. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The wonder of an atmosphere surcharged with devotional service to the Lord is briefly described herein by Sri Narada Muni. He was the son of the most insignificant parentage. He was not properly educated. Still, because his complete energy was engaged in the service of the Lord, he became an immortal sage. Such is the powerful action of devotional service. The living entities are the marginal energy of the Lord, and therefore they are meant for being properly utilized in the transcendental loving service of Him. When this is not done, one situation is called Maya. Therefore, the illusion of Maya is at once dissipated as soon as one's full energy is converted in the service of the Lord instead of in sense enjoyment. From the personal example of Sri Narada Muni in his previous birth, it is clear that the service of the Lord begins with the service of the Lord's bona fide servants. The Lord says that the service of His servants is greater than His personal service. Service of the devotee is more valuable than the service of the Lord. One should therefore choose a bona fide servant of the Lord constantly engaged in His service, accept such a servant as a spiritual master, and engage himself in the spiritual master's service. Such a spiritual master is a transparent medium by which to visualize the Lord, who is beyond the conception of the material senses. By service of the bona fide spiritual master, the Lord consents to reveal Himself in proportion to the service rendered. Utilization of the human energy in the service of the Lord is the progressive path of salvation. The whole cosmic creation becomes at once identical with the Lord as soon as service in relation with the Lord is rendered under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. The expert spiritual master knows the art of utilizing everything to glorify the Lord, and therefore under his guidance, the whole world can be turned into the spiritual abode by the divine grace of the Lord's servant. Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So here, Prabhupada is saying, by service of the bona fide spiritual master, the Lord consents to reveal Himself in proportion to the service rendered. This is a very crucial point Prabhupada is making here. In class this morning, we were discussing this very point, the 10:10 verse of Bhagavad Gita. Desham satadayuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam tadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. So Krishna is saying in this verse, as we engage in service, then Krishna is also reciprocating with that service, regardless of how great or how menial it is. And according to the desire of Krishna and us fulfilling his desire, which is to engage in loving service, he reciprocates with that. How? Not by rewarding us with the lottery winner, or by giving us the result of the winner of the next horse race that we want to put money on. No. Krishna rewards us by giving us the opportunity to go deeper and deeper and deeper into that service. And Krishna says, according to the way in which we render service to Krishna, he rewards us accordingly. He also says, from me comes knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. So here is, Prabhupada is describing the whole atmosphere surrounding Narada Muni. Narada Muni was the son of a maidservant. And as Prabhupada describes here in the purport, Narada Muni was uneducated, practically speaking, almost illiterate. Yet Narada Muni is considered to be one of the greatest saints in our whole Sampradaya. He travels all over the universe preaching the glories of the Lord, chanting the glories of the Lord. How many devotees are there described in Srimad Bhagavatam who were disciples, great Mahabhagavats, who were disciples of Narada Muni? The spiritual master of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, he was practically speaking illiterate. The greatest scholar in our line, practically speaking, again, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, he was his first disciple. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, he had to beg to take initiation from his spiritual master. He was encouraged to do so by his father, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. If you want to get the mercy of the Lord, you take from this guru. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, who's considered to be one of the greatest scholars practically in the history of our Sampradaya, he took initiation from an illiterate person. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, on his travels, particularly in South India, we all know the story, he came across the man who was sitting outside the temple who was completely illiterate. And yet he was reading Bhagavad Gita upside down sometimes because he couldn't read. And people were just laughing at him, considering him to be a joke. And Lord Chaitanya noticed this man sitting outside the temple, and he approached him. He said, "My dear sir, why are you reading Bhagavad Gita like this? And yet I'm hearing you don't know how to read." He said, "Well, my guru, he instructed me to read Bhagavad Gita. But you don't know how to read, so how do you do it? Why are you crying like this? I see you're shedding tears constantly." And the man said, "Well, when I think of how Lord Krishna himself, he took on the role of servant as charioteer, the chariot driver to Arjuna, I shed tears of joy at the idea, the very notion that Krishna himself becomes the servant of his devotee." Lord Chaitanya embraced him. He said, "You have understood perfectly the purport of Bhagavad Gita." So we can see from this verse, from this purport, from this whole thing, this whole chapter, Narada's instructions on Srimad Bhagavatam, here's Narad talking, giving instruction on Srimad Bhagavatam, the prime benediction of the writings of Vyasadeva for all humanity. A semi-illiterate Narada Muni is giving the instructions directly within the pages of the Bhagavatam. And we have that example of Lord Chaitanya embracing the illiterate man who was reading or trying to read Bhagavad Gita in front of the temple. So it's nothing to do with being highly elevated, highly educated. Even in some cases, being highly elevated or highly educated can be a hindrance to devotional service. We should behave, Prabhupada instructs us, we should try to behave like a child. Not that we go around behaving like a child, running around wild here and there, and doing whatever we want to do. but a child in the sense that like a child cries for its mother. When we're chanting the holy names of the Lord, we're like a child crying for its mother. Nothing will pacify that child screaming until it's in the arms of the mother. We're in the same situation. So these sages and saints happened to be passing through Narada Muni's village, and it came the time for Chaturmas. Chaturmas are the 4 seasons, the rainy seasons, when everything more or less grinds to a halt. And because of the rain being very dangerous with flooding and so many torrential floods, the traveling sages and saints, they tend to stay in one place for the 4 months of Chaturmas, which we all observe. So in previous times, they would engage in simply reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, chanting the names of the Lord, reading scripture, and so on. And they happened to stay in the village where Narada Muni's mother was a maidservant. And of course, he was serving the sages and the saints during those 4 months. And he heard them reciting scripture, chanting the names of the Lord, reciting Bhagavatam, and he took it in. Just like Prahlad in the womb of his mother, he heard the recitation of the glories of the holy names of the Lord, and he took it in. That's why his classmates and his teachers, they couldn't understand where Prahlad had got this knowledge from. The knowledge always comes from a source. And when the source is bona fide, and the source of that knowledge meets the bona fide seeker, then the reciprocation of exchange of ideas, exchange of knowledge becomes perfect. And in this way, we can advance in Krishna consciousness and perfect ourselves, even if we are also ourselves not qualified to do so. We may have no qualification, but if we have a sincere desire to engage in the service of the Lord reciprocates with that. Just like in that 10:10 verse. Krishna will simply guide us in such a way through the Lord in the heart, through the Chaita Guru, that we will come to a stage of absolute perfection. Krishna's Prabhupada says here, the Lord says that the service of his servants is greater than his personal service. This we understand from so many examples in our history, so many examples from our Shastra, that if we serve the servant of the servant of the servant, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also gives us that instruction. Kopi Bharta Kamali, Das Anudas Anudas. The servant of the servant of the servant of the servant, 1,000,000 times removed, becomes the servant of the servant, regardless of our position in it. And if we do that, everything falls into place. Everything becomes perfect. There's no need for any extraneous effort. It's a very simple process. We don't need to make it complicated. If we simply engage in service, everything falls into place. The verse here is saying, in the last millennium, I was born as the son of a certain maidservant engaged in the service of Brahmins who were following the principles of Vedanta. When they were living together during the 4 months of the rainy season, I was engaged in their personal service. And how do we develop that service attitude? It's quite contrary to the reason why we came to the material world in the first place. The reason we came to the material world in the first place is because we wanted to lord it over the material sphere. In other words, we had the desire to be God. And of course, God is no competitor. It simply doesn't work. So we've gone through the whole millennium after millennium of the school of hard knocks, getting kicked by the donkey of lust constantly, until we finally reach the point where we realize this doesn't work. So then how do we, again, get back towards the direct goal of developing our Krishna consciousness, going back to the spiritual world? And what is our mood? How do we engage in the mood of servitude? There is only one Lord, and that is Krishna. Lord Chaitanya, again, he gives us the instruction. Trinadapi sunichina, tarorapi sahishnina, amanina, amanideva, kirtanya sadahani. This is the secret. Lord Chaitanya said, actually, out of those verses that he gave us, he said, this verse, this one particular verse, should be worn as a garland around your neck. Trinadapi sunichina, tarorapi sahishnina, amanina, amanideva, kirtanya sadahani. One should chant the holy names of the Lord in a humble state of mind. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and ready to offer all respects to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy names of the Lord constantly. So this is the pre-qualification that we all have to take into consideration and imbibe and put into practice before we can reach the level of chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra with purity. This is a tall order. More tolerant than a tree. You take a panga, you hit a tree, the tree doesn't resist. The tree just stands there. You cut the branch of a tree, the tree doesn't complain. The tree will continue to give you fruit even if you beat it. The tree will continue to give you shade even if you cut its branches off. The tree will just stand there. Lord Chaitanya is instructing us, we should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, lower than the straw in the street. Who wants to be lower than the straw in the street? This is a huge qualification to expect from any of us, because we all have our ego. That is natural, that we have this ego. The conclusion is to engage that ego in the service of Krishna, not to renounce it or give it up or throw it away or try to artificially just suppress it. It doesn't work. Krishna says also in Bhagavad Gita, what can suppression accomplish? Absolutely nothing. So what we have to do, instead of suppressing our desires, instead of suppressing our senses, Prabhupada said, you're wasting your time. We have to engage those senses, those desires in Krishna's service. Everything is perfect. If you're an artist, be an artist for Krishna. If you're a singer, be a singer for Krishna. If you're a farmer, be a farmer for Krishna. If you're a writer, be a writer for Krishna. If you're a leader, be a leader for Krishna. You don't have to change anything. Nothing has to go away. But if we still cling on to our own ideas, our own anarthas, and we still try to develop at the same time Krishna consciousness, it can't be done. So we may go through the motions, we go through the ritualistic process of attending the morning program, the ritualistic process of chanting our rounds, the ritualistic process of going Vanchakalpa, Trupascha. But if we don't mean it, we don't get any benefit from it. And that pre-qualification enunciated by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that is the foundation of everything that we need to do. That is the bricks and mortar of our house, of our building. If we don't have that Trinada Pisunichina, Tarora Pisahishna, Amanina, Amanidena, Kitanya Sadari, we're really banging our head against the wall. It's trying to cook something when there's no ingredients. What can you produce? You need the boga to cook. There's no use trying to imagine I'm going to offer a great meal to Krishna and there's no vegetables there. No rice, no dal, no ghee, nothing. And then you just get frustrated. So that pre-qualification, as soon as we establish that in our heart, and even if we're not on that level of humility, if we desire to reach that level of humility, then everything else will come of its own accord. Then our chanting will be glorious. I wonder myself, after so many years of chanting, why am I not seeing Krishna everywhere? Why am I not hearing Krishna everywhere? If Krishna has invested his energy, his whole being in the chanting of his names, why does it not work for me? Because I haven't reached that level of qualification of Lord Chaitanya's instruction. But if I have the desire, and that desire will eventually manifest. It's as Govinda Swami used to say so often, ours is a crying society. We simply cry, please Krishna, engage me in the service. Beg Krishna. But we have to give up the ego. We have to give up this false ego. We have to throw it aside. We know from the philosophy, we hear it every day. You're not the body, you're spirit, soul. You're not a Hindu, you're not a Muslim, you're not a Christian, you're not a Jew, you're not Irish, you're not German, you're not Kenyan, you're not this, that, or the other. We hear it all the time. But still, we don't want to reject that notion, that idea. We still cling on somehow or other to the idea, no, I am the body. I do look great in the mirror. But at the same time, we're chanting Hare Krishna, so it's like pouring water on the fire of the ghee. It goes out. So it's not that we're not making any progress, of course. Even Nam Bas, regardless, there is progress. Otherwise, why do we stay? We have to have some taste. That ruchi is there. There is a small amount of ruchi within us, which allows us to continue day after day after day. But why do we want to stick all the time with this tiny amount of taste? Just break open the storehouse of love of God. That's what Lord Chaitanya has given us. It's a storehouse of love of God. Nothing less. Everything is there in our grasp. Everything. There's nothing to be lost. We are our own worst enemy. We have to stop ourselves from holding ourselves back and just go for it. As Prabhupada said, shoot for the rhinoceros. Even if you miss, then everybody will say, well, it couldn't be done. And then you hit the target, you're the winner. You're glorified. So here's Narada Muni, very humble background. So many examples are there. How many devotees did Narada Muni engage in the service of Krishna? How many devotees did Narada Muni give the mantra to? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Those who were lost. Who were Narada Muni's disciples? The famous one is Magrari. Magrari, a hunter. He didn't even kill the animals. He tortured them. He captured them. He tortured them. He half killed them and left them there on the side of the road to suffer immeasurably. When Narada Muni came along and saw this, he couldn't believe what he was seeing. And eventually he saw Magrari and engaged Magrari in the service of Krishna to reach a stage where Magrari gave up all his hunting business, but he pleaded with Narada, how will I live? This is my job. This is my business. I've done hunting. My father was a hunter. My grandfather was a hunter. Narada Muni said, you don't worry. I'll take care of it. When he gave up his hunting, years later, Narada Muni came back to see him, and he was brushing the road.
Why by come seeing? People from 4, 3, 2, there's no 0, 1.
So all the villagers, they heard about Narada Muni, and he was being fed. They would bring him his food. He never wanted for anything. He became one of Narada Muni's greatest devotees, Dhruva Maharaj. Narada Muni gave that simple mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Changed his life. So we're not hunters. We're not coming from a background of hunters, but we have a more advanced status in life than being a hunter. But we all have that opportunity to engage in the service of Krishna. Don't let it go. Just simply grab onto it at every chance we've got. The examples are there on every page of the Bhagavatam. Study these books. Study particularly these purports of Srila Prabhupada. Every single word, every sentence Prabhupada has written is invested with oceans of knowledge. Oceans. We read these books every day. We never be the loser. Jai. Hare Krishna. Any questions from anybody? It's 22.
Before questions, I was a bit late. Can I give a little introduction of Vidhura Prabhu? Yeah, thanks.
Yes, Mataji. We are waiting for devotees to join in. So thank you.
Yeah.
Kindly introduce Vidhura Prabhuji to us, please. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, he's too humble. He didn't give me enough, but little bit let me share with others about Vidhura Prabhu. Yeah, just bear with me. I'm not high-tech person. I'm going to try. Oh, Krishna. Oh.
I hope this is connected with Tridana Peace and that you know.
All right, here we go. Vidhura Prabhu joined in Ireland in 79. And, with Vidhura Prabhu and, Khandadi Prabhu, yeah, even Tushar knows, they really emphasize the point that we are not English, we are Irish. And today I heard him saying that he learned English when he went to the secondary school. That's very interesting information. And so he says Britain is his second home, right? Ireland is first. Dublin, I think. Yes, Vidhura Prabhu, is it Dublin? Vidhura Prabhu?
Correct.
Yeah. So then Gita Nagari Press, which is in, I think, Pennsylvania and USA. And he was there, Philadelphia. Is it Philadelphia, Pennsylvania? And Philadelphia, London,
it's on the farm.
Heidelberg, Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Kampala, he forgot. He was also in Kampala doing a lot of good work, introducing a lot of innovative things he introduced in Kampala. Currently, he is in Birmingham. But I met him in 1989 when I came to Nairobi. And since he was from England, Wazungu, and I was so used to Wazungus, so he was the person I would just go crying and taking my vent out, and so for me he was like I don't know what, a shoulder, a pillar, to give me some strength. My mother was also with me at the time. Vidhura Prabhu has actually met my mother also. So anyway, I think he has even more places he's been, Washington and New York, but he's very humble. He didn't give the whole list. So for now, this should suffice. Let people ask their question. Haribol, thank you.
Sorry. Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for joining us and giving your precious time to us. I open this session for any questions or comments. Any questions or comments?
By the way, he's staying at Kirtika's house. She's hosted them.
Yes, there's a question from Jagat Bandhu. Kindly unmute and ask your question, please.
Hare Krishna, Vidhura Prabhu. It's nice attending this wonderful class by you. I'm happy to. I'm happy to hear your voice. So, I'm speaking from Kampala here. First of all, I want to thank the organizers of this platform. I want to thank Manasi Ganga Mataj and the host. Now, I have listened in quite well, though the network was a little bit on and off here. I just wanted to ask, when a devotee, for example, is given instructions by the spiritual master and is not in a position to fulfill this instruction, for example, you have cited an example of a disciple, I didn't hear, a disciple who was reading the Bhagavad Gita, yet he was illiterate. So when your spiritual master gives you instructions and you are in such a position, what should be the course? What should the disciple do? Because purely people lean towards different abilities and propensities in life. There could be something that you can't manage because of a certain factor that disables you or whatever. What is the situation? What happens to that disciple? That's my question.
There's always a time and place and circumstance. Like if you recall from the Leela Amrita, I did the interviews for the Leela Amrita in my area was to cover the United States. So I was traveling throughout the United States for 2 years, doing the interviews for the Leela Amrita from all the Prabhupada disciples, people who were not necessarily disciples, also politicians, whoever met Srila Prabhupada. I was given the instruction, whoever met Srila Prabhupada, street sweeper, politician, devotees who may have left ISKCON, anyone you meet, try to find them and get their interview for their relationship or their encounters with Srila Prabhupada. So I was on the road doing that for 2 years in America. I was very fortunate, shortly after I went to the United States, to be given that service. And it's helped me to stand the test of time because I was able to take in more and more of Prabhupada's mood and how he functioned and how he managed the society. But from Prabhupada's own example in relationship to your question, and you say, what if you're given the instruction by the guru and you're not in a position to carry out that instruction? Right? To the example of that devotee in South India who was embraced by Lord Chaitanya, he was illiterate. He couldn't read Bhagavad Gita. He was given the instruction by his guru to read Bhagavad Gita. He endeavored to do so every day, but by simply remembering Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaran, there's so many processes within the process of devotional service. You take any one of those and you perfect it, and that becomes perfection. And that leads you to the goal. But also, to get back to the example of Srila Prabhupada himself, he was given the instruction by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj to go and preach in the Western countries, in the Western world. If you ever get money, he was told, print books in the English language, spread the message of Mahaprabhu all over the world. From my recollection, may not be right exactly on the year, that instruction to Srila Prabhupada was given to him in 1922. Srila Prabhupada went to New York in 1965. What was happening in between? Was Srila Prabhupada's instruction then lost, forgotten, mislaid, ignored? Of course not. Srila Prabhupada started ISKCON in 1966, we all know. But Srila Prabhupada embarked on the journey on the Jaladuta in 1965. ISKCON was established almost a year after he got to America. But he was given the instruction in 1922. It took him all that time to fulfill that instruction, fulfill the desire of the spiritual master. It doesn't mean in the intervening years, all that time was wasted. He was laying the foundation. He was translating Bhagavad Gita. He was translating Srimad Bhagavatam, of which he took the first 3 volumes with him, those famous first 3 volumes to Srimad Bhagavatam on the ship, on the Jaladuta. And whenever he got the opportunity, he would sell those in New York, in Boston, wherever he would go, to maintain himself before he started the society. So there is no, Krishna says in this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. If we cannot immediately fulfill the order of the spiritual master, then Krishna from within, he will find a way to guide us. And Krishna will lay the foundation. In Krishna consciousness, there is only success. Only. And it is described that the word impossible does not exist in the dictionary of a Vaishnava. It's simply not there. As far as the material aspect is concerned, what Srila Prabhupada achieved in such a short space of time, only 11 years from the time he started ISKCON to the time he left us, was inconceivable. Cannot be done from a material perspective. Impossible to achieve. Traveling the world 14 times. 14 times. I just came from London on a flight. It took me 3 days to recover. We just drove here from Nairobi, and I'm still trying to recover from the drive. Prabhupada was constantly chanting, constantly traversing the globe, constantly, never phased. He woke up every morning in the early hours of the morning when all the other devotees were asleep to translate Srimad Bhagavatam. Without fail, every day, no matter where he was, no matter what flight, 15-hour, 24-hour flight he had just come off, he did it. Of course, we're not Prabhupada. Prabhupada is setting us the example. Yad yad acharati shrestas. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Whatever example the great man does, common man will follow. So we're small, we're tiny, we're puny. But it doesn't mean we can do nothing. We all know the story of the sparrow who was assisting Lord Ramachandra to throwing the stones in the water. What can a sparrow do? Everybody was laughing at the sparrow. Lord Chaitanya chastised her. No. Sparrow was doing her service. She's engaging in whatever way she can. Whatever the menial service we can do, that is to our eternal credit. And if we can't do it, find a way to do it. Krishna will open the doors. Nothing is impossible. Jai. Hare Krishna. Any more questions?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Panchali Mataji has a question. Mataji, can you unmute and ask your question, please?
Hare Krishna Mataji, Hare Krishna Prabhuji. I've sent a text, but I'll quickly ask some questions. Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances. So my question is around the last point on the Hunter Murari. Not directly related to the topic today, but I was just wondering, Prabhuji, the fact that the hunter became a devotee in his later life after he was advised by Narad Muni, does that mean that that his sins of killing animals prior to becoming a devotee was either partially or completely excused? Or will he still have to, or did he still have to suffer the consequences of killing those animals? Because the reason I ask is because I was a massive meat eater before. I've become a vegetarian for quite a few years, and I often wonder what is the fate of souls who were meat eaters and then gave up meat and became Krishna, Krishna conscious. Well,
very nice question. Very nice. You know, there are many answers to this question in our line, in our sampradaya. There are also answers within the Christian context also, which is interesting. So many people, they would approach Jesus. I was very strong, devout Catholic before I met the devotees. And there was one day, one man approached Jesus. He was considering himself to be a sinner, a meat eater, enjoyer, fornicator, everything like that. And Jesus told him, okay, you've done all these things. That's not the best way to live your life. But now your sins are forgiven. And then Jesus said, on the condition, he said, now go and sin no more. So that was from the Christian perspective. In our own line, as from Shastra, we learn that when we take initiation from the spiritual master takes on the role of taking the sins of his disciple. Ultimately, just when the spiritual master, when we're offering boga to the spiritual master offers the boga to his spiritual master, and so on and so on. It goes back to Krishna. That's why we don't offer directly to Krishna. We're not in that position. But when the spiritual master takes on the sins of his disciple, ultimately the reaction for those sins is taken by Krishna himself. But then there's also that precondition. Now go and sin no more. So we cannot, it's one of the offenses against the holy name to think that we can carry on chanting, and by one of the benefits of our chanting, we might imagine, is that our sins will be eradicated. No, that's an offense against the holy name. But it's impossible to avoid sinful life. But in case of directly answering your question as regards to meat eating, then we can say that, yes, provided when we take Diksha, the spiritual master takes the result of our karma and it's dissipated completely, provided we don't engage again in that sinful activity. I can give an example in my own life. I was traveling on a bus one time with my mother. She was going to the market, and in those days in Ireland, I'm talking about in the 50s, 1950s, all the ladies would travel together to the market, just like we do in Africa. In those days, there were markets on the street. So we were traveling on a bus. There was an advertisement on the bus for sausages. And I was confused about this advertisement because I always thought sausages were made from a pig, from meat, from pork. But on this advertisement, there was a pig, but dressed in a tuxedo. He was carrying a plate of sausages and he was serving them out in the restaurant, the pig was. So this really blew my mind. So I said to my mother, where does the pig get the sausages from? So my mother just ignored me. She was talking with the other ladies and just tried to get rid of me. I think I was 6 or 7 years old at the time. And one of the other ladies, to keep me quiet, she said, well, they take the pig, they cut him up into little pieces, put him in the machine, and sausages come out the other end. I was like, horrified. I said, wow. So I said, I never want to eat sausages again. So then that evening, I think we had sausages for tea, as you do. And I said to my mother, is this a pig? She said, of course it's a pig. Eat your tea. So I said, no, I'm not going to eat that. So I got a clip on the ear and I was sent to bed. So I didn't eat meat ever after that in my whole life, from the age of 6 years old. So my mother was confused. So she brought me to the doctor. My son is not eating. And the doctor said, oh, what's wrong? Well, he hasn't eaten for nearly 2 weeks. Oh, that's serious. So the doctor examined me. So it seems fine to me. He's healthy. Said, but he hasn't eaten. So why? Well, he hasn't eaten any meat. So the doctor wrote a note, gave it to my mother, bring him to see a child psychiatrist. They brought me to a child psychiatrist. He looked at different silhouettes and different labels and so many things for over an hour. They examined me. And at the end of the hour, my mother said to the psychiatrist, so what's wrong with my son? And he said, well, he doesn't want to eat meat. My mother said, yes, I know that, but what's wrong with him? He doesn't want to eat meat. So somehow or other, growing up in the 50s, my mother was pulling her hair out. What do I do with this child? Because eating in Ireland in those days meant eating meat. Vegetables weren't even considered to be food. So somehow or other, it was in my heart, in my soul, this is wrong. So we all reach that stage. So can I turn back the clock for the years that I did eat meat? No, I can't. Can my mother be blamed? Oh, that was the culture, that was the tradition. People didn't know that eating was a sinful activity, eating meat, killing animals. We were unaware. But when we were made aware, when it reached our consciousness that this is wrong, and then afterwards we continued to do it, that's when the sinful reaction is multiplied immensely. So you're fortunate, you've reached the stage where. So Narada Muni, in the case of Magrari, he would automatically have taken the reaction on his shoulders for whatever sinful reaction Magrari was going to have had he not met Narada Muni. So in this case, he would pass it back. Ultimately, Krishna takes the reaction. Krishna is so merciful. We come into this material world and we want to avoid Krishna at every single opportunity. We go out of our way to stay away and steer clear of Krishna. Somehow, Krishna, he doesn't take offense. He comes towards us at 1,000,000 miles an hour. We're running away from him and he's running after us. But somehow or other, something in life stops us from running away from Krishna. We get a book, we get some prasad, we hear a mantra somewhere, we attend a Jagannath festival, whatever the case may be. And from that moment in time, we're turned back and we're going towards Krishna. We don't want to fall off that path. Once we get in that direction, stick with it at any cost. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Manasi Ganga. Yes.
Yes, Vidhura Prabhu, the answer that you gave to Panchali, perfect. However, my query is that we say a child who doesn't know about fire, but he puts his finger so he will get burned. Meaning whether you know or you don't know, karma will catch up with you. So then in that case, how would you explain, okay, in ignorance, I was eating meat. Of course, we say once you take to spiritual life, you've taken initiation, you're going around Tulsi, you're washing off your sin or karma. But some of it we must have to pay, isn't it? Or it's totally deleted?
It's totally deleted. But there is residual karma even after taking initiation, even after all pap is wiped clean. It's totally deleted, completely, totally. But then we may not be engaged in gross activities like eating meat and things like that. But we also still inadvertently, we commit sinful activities constantly. We have sinful thoughts, sinful actions. We think bad of each other. We engage in gramya kata. We do things that are for our gratification and not ultimately for the gratification of the Lord. We don't use our senses, our intelligence, our mind, everything in the service of Krishna constantly 24 hours a day. We're not on the Brahma-Bhuta platform. We're aspiring to be. We want to be. It's our desire. And that desire is strong. It may be strong. But somehow or other, inadvertently, the whole material world is an ocean of faults. We're not immune to the consequences of living in the material world. It's no fit place for a gentleman. So, padam padam, yadvi padam natesham. There's danger at every step. We stumble, we fall. We commit sinful activities even without knowing. So there is a residual karma. The slate is wiped clean completely when you take on a spiritual master, when the spiritual master decides to take you as a disciple. It's a two-way relationship. It's not a one-way thing. So we have to be careful. We have to be very, very careful in our spiritual endeavor and not be complacent at any time. The spiritual master is an ocean of mercy. Look what he has given us. He has given us this clean, perfect, pristine opportunity to go forward. Don't blow it. Reduce the sinful activity to the point of elimination. That's the perfection of our lives. So at the last moment, at the last breath, there's nothing left. Only Krishna. That's our design. That's our goal. Chai. Very good. Any more questions? How's the time?
Hare Krishna, we have 2 more minutes. Any other questions or comments? Prabhuji, I have a quick question. I'm of the time. Prabhuji, when you say tolerant as a tree, and does that mean tolerant as a tree in the japa, or does it mean in the in all fields of life?
Yeah, in everything we do. Everything we do. We don't need to be tolerant of japa. We should be taking shelter of japa, but we should be tolerant of everything that we do. We should consider ourselves lower than the straw on the street. We shouldn't be thinking ourselves better or superior or more advanced than others. We should be completely and totally ready to serve others. And in this endeavor, we can become perfect. So, Trinada Pisa Nichida, Trora Pisa Hishnima, Manina, Manidena, Katanya Sada. And in such a state of mind, we should be ready to offer all respects to others. So I think for most of us, we fall short of that one. In such a state of mind, be ready to offer all respects to others, all respects to others. Then we can chant the holy names of the Lord perfectly. That's what holds us back, our ego. It holds us back all the time, trips us up constantly. And that's how we engage sometimes, and we go into sinful activity. Even within the mind, there's still a reaction. Chai, thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Very good.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Prabhuji. I'll hand over to Parth Prabhuji, who will close the session for today. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for your association. We are so grateful you are here in Eldoret. And like Vidhura Prabhu told, like Trunadapi Shunishan, Tarudapi Shashna, how a person is supposed to be more tolerant. Like we can learn from Vidhura Prabhu's lifetime, because he is so humble, as senior as he is doing many services across the world in a different center, but he is so humble, and so we are so fortunate that by his own life we can see that one. So we are so like he's in Eldoret, like more 2 days, maybe more 2-3 days he's here. We're taking more and more association. So I request all the devotees, please unmute yourself and chant Hare Krishna mantra for glorification of His grace, Vidhura Prabhuji. Please join. Hare
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Vanchakalpatarubhyasya Srila Prabhupada ki jai. His grace Vidhura Prabhu ki jai.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Nice class, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Bol. Thank you.
Prabhuji, very nice class. Thank you so much.
Hare